Madam President, thank you for the opportunity to brief today on Sudan. Let me begin with a few words on Elabade in North Kordofan State. Last week, the Secretary General warned of the catastrophic consequences for civilians should the fighting in Elabade intensify further. Over the past 2 weeks, drone strikes by both parties in the area have increased significantly, while the rapid support forces have expanded their presence around the city. An escalation in Elabade would place hundreds of thousands of civilians at immediate risk of large-scale violence. The High Commissioner for Human Rights has issued a stark warning of an impending human rights disaster if this offensive is not halted. A full-scale battle would trigger new waves of displacement toward already overstretched areas and deepen instability across the wider Kordofan region. It would likely be prolonged, further entrenching the parties' positions in negotiations and narrowing the space for mediation and political engagement. Once again, we call for restraint from all parties and urge them to take all necessary measures to respect and protect civilians. The window to avert a wider escalation in Elabade is rapidly narrowing. Madam President, beyond Elabade, fighting in Sudan continues on multiple fronts. The wider Kordofan region remains the epicenter of the conflict, with intensified fighting taking place around Dilling, Kadugli and Babanusa as both parties continue to contest key strategic areas. Drone strikes on bridges and transport corridors across Darfur and Kordofan in recent weeks have wreaked havoc on humanitarian routes and isolated communities. The security situation in White Nile and Blue Nile states also remains volatile, with continued clashes in Kermuk, Gessen, and Bao localities as the parties fight for territorial gain. Along with these developments, the civilian death toll continues to rise every day. The growing use of drones is making the conflict more unpredictable, more geographically dispersed, and more lethal for civilians. While the rainy season has traditionally brought a reduction in fighting, the drone activity means there will be no respite for civilians, as it is expected to continue throughout the rainy season. Madam President, the parties could not sustain this pace of fighting without the sophisticated weaponry they obtain through external support. We renew our urgent call on all external actors to use their influence to help end this war, rather than be complicit in it. Let me be clear. There are clear warning signs of worse things to come if we don't act. Sudan's escalating conflict is unfolding amid rising tensions between Sudan and neighboring states. In early May, tensions escalated between the Sudanese and Ethiopian governments following allegations of interference in each other's internal security situations. Tensions also remain high between Sudan and Chad, following clashes earlier this year and continued instability on their shared border. These tensions risk becoming drivers of further escalation, drawing neighboring states more directly into the conflict. Madam President, we continue to support all efforts to reduce violence, including the Quad's initiative to secure a humanitarian truce. We call on the parties to engage in these negotiations in good faith to make much-needed progress towards a truce agreement. At the same time, it has become clear that knowing Sudan's political future looks like it is key for the parties and their allies to agree to stop fighting. They want a roadmap for what happens the day after they agree to lay down their weapons. So we must, in tandem, continue efforts towards a permanent ceasefire and a sustainable political solution. Central to progress on the political front is the strong partnership among the quintet members, the African Union, the European Union, the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, the League of Arab States, and the United Nations. In early June, the quintet convened consultations in Addis Ababa with a broad spectrum of Sudanese civilians. Participants expressed a wide range of views on the modalities for and participation in a future process reflecting the pluralism of Sudan's society. But they all endorsed the urgent need for a Sudanese-owned and led political dialogue facilitated by the quintet. This is an encouraging development. The quintet will now build on this progress and engage with an expanded range of Sudanese stakeholders in the coming weeks. As this work continues, we note the plans announced by Sudanese authorities to move ahead with a national dialogue process. This initiative has the potential to foster meaningful dialogue to outline Sudan's political pathway to peace. The credibility of an intra-Sudanese process will depend on the inclusive participation of a truly representative, wide spectrum of Sudanese political and civilian actors. Madam President, since his appointment, Personal Envoy Havisto has hit the ground running, visiting Sudan, crisscrossing the region, and visiting other key capitals. He has engaged with the conflict parties and a broad range of other Sudanese and international actors to hear their perspectives and explore practical measures to build momentum toward peace. In this regard, the Personal Envoy has commenced discussions with the conflict parties to advance concrete measures that could de-escalate violence and benefit civilians. We are encouraged that both parties have affirmed an openness to take these discussions forward in the coming weeks. In recent days, Personal Envoy Havisto has also engaged directly with key actors to encourage restraint and help prevent further escalation around Elabade and elsewhere in the country. Madam President, while our efforts can help create space for the dialogue, they cannot substitute for the political will required to end this war. The parties and their backers take note when the Council acts with unity of purpose. We welcome the recent Council press statement on Elabade. Your words and your actions matter. We call on you to do more. We stand ready to work with you and to continue doing our part to bring this conflict to its long overdue conclusion. Thank you, Madam President.